The city was dead. Buildings that once touched the sky were broken, their bones scattered across the land. Dust moved with the wind, and strange animals crawled in the shadows of ruins. In the middle of this wasteland, a small figure walked slowly, her hands stretched forward, her feet feeling the ground before every step. She was an alien girl. Her skin was pale silver, her hair long and tangled. Her eyes were cloudy, empty of light. She had been blind since birth. For her, the world was only sound, touch, and smell. Every day she collected trash, broken wires, empty metal cans, sharp glass pieces, strange objects left behind by the old world. She placed them in a cloth bag tied around her back. She could not see what she carried, but she believed one day something inside the trash would matter. Something would change her life. The people of her ruined city did not care about her. Some laughed at her, calling her the useless blind one. Others threw small stones when she passed. To them, she was only a weak mouth that took food but gave nothing back. They never helped her. They never spoke kindly, but the girl never gave up. Even though she was blind, even though her body was thin and weak, she walked the broken streets every morning. She touched the ground with her hands. She felt the shapes of objects, and she listened to the whispers of the wind. She built her own small world out of sound and touch. The city was silent, yet to her it was alive. She heard metal creaking under the heat of the sun. She heard rats running in the rubble. She heard the distant echo of water dripping from a broken pipe. These sounds guided her like stars in the night. One day, as she bent down to pick a piece of metal, she felt something strange. It was round and smooth with tiny moving parts. She could not understand what it was, but she placed it carefully in her bag. She whispered to herself, "Maybe this one is important." Her voice was soft, like she was afraid of the silence. She often spoke to herself because no one else listened. Her only friend was the bag of trash she carried. She gave names to objects. The long pipe was snake. The smooth stone was egg. The broken glass piece was mirror. She treated them like friends, because real friends never came. The sun began to fall, painting the ruined city in red light she could not see. She touched the broken wall of a building and sat down to rest. She pulled out one of the objects, a bent spoon, and rubbed her fingers over its cold surface. "Today I found a new thing," she said to the spoon, smiling faintly. "Maybe tomorrow I will find something even better." Her smile faded as she heard laughter in the distance. A group of children walked by, their steps loud, their voices sharp. "There she is again, the blind trash collector," one shouted. "Maybe she thinks she will find gold in the dirt." Another laughed. The girl held the spoon tightly in her hand, her body small against the broken wall. She did not reply. She only lowered her head and waited for the children to leave. After a while, their voices faded. The silence returned. She sighed. Loneliness was heavy, but she carried it like she carried her bag. Yet something was different this evening. The silence did not feel the same. Her ears, sharp and trained from years without sight, caught a new sound, a slow, steady breath, the crunch of a boot on stone. Not a child, not a rat, not the wind. Someone was watching her. Her heart began to beat faster. She turned her head left and right, but her eyes showed her nothing. Only darkness. Her hands trembled on the spoon. The sound did not go away. Whoever it was, they stood quietly, only a short distance away. The girl whispered, "Who is there?" Her voice shook like dry leaves in the wind. No answer came, only the sound of breathing, slow and calm. She stood, holding her bag close to her chest. She could not run. She would trip and fall. She could not fight. She had only trash in her hands. The silence grew heavy again, pressing down on her shoulders. She felt as if the whole ruined city was waiting for the stranger to move. Then suddenly the breathing stopped. The sound of boots turned away, fading into the distance. The girl stood frozen for a long time, listening, waiting, her ears wide open. Finally, when there was nothing but the whisper of the wind, she sat down again, her heart still racing. She did not know who had been there. A thief, a monster, or something else entirely. But deep inside her, she felt something she had never felt before. It was not only fear, it was also curiosity. For the first time in her lonely life, the blind collector wondered, what if someone was watching me? Not to harm me, but for another reason. She touched the smooth, round object she had found earlier and held it close to her chest. The city around her was broken and empty, yet tonight it felt different. Somewhere out there in the ruins, someone had seen her, and this was only the beginning. Night covered the ruined city. The broken towers looked like teeth against the dark sky. The blind girl slept in a corner of stone, her bag of trash clutched to her chest. She dreamed of light she had never seen, and voices that spoke kindly, though she had never heard them in her waking life. But someone else was awake in the ruins, someone who was not from this world. A man walked carefully among the broken streets, his boots pressed lightly on the dirt, his eyes sharp and restless. He was human. His uniform was torn, his armor scratched, and his face covered with dust. He had been traveling alone for many days, searching for food, water, and shelter. This man was far from home. His ship had fallen from the sky weeks ago, crashing into the alien wasteland. His crew was gone, lost to the storm, or taken by scavengers. Only he remained, and now he had found something strange. He had seen the girl earlier that day, moving slowly with her hands outstretched. At first he thought she was another scavenger, but then he noticed her eyes, cloudy, lifeless, blind. He watched her pick broken objects from the dirt, placing them gently in her bag, as if each piece of trash was treasure. He had not approached. He only observed, hidden in the shadows. He was curious. Who was she? How had she survived in this broken city with no sight, no family, no protection? The man had seen many cruel things on this world. He had seen gangs steal from the weak, creatures crawl from the cracks to drag away the careless. Yet this girl moved carefully, untouched, as if the city itself allowed her to exist. Now, as the moonlight touched the ruins, the man returned to the place where she slept. He stood quietly only a few steps away, his breathing steady. The girl stirred. Her ears were sharp, sharper than any human's. She sat up suddenly, clutching her bag. "Who is there?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The man stayed silent. He did not want to frighten her, but he also knew she had already sensed him. Slowly he stepped forward. A small stone rolled under his boot. The girl's head turned toward the sound. Her empty eyes stared straight at him, though she could not see. "Please, don't take my things," she said. Her hands shook as she hugged her bag of trash. The man frowned. Her voice was soft, full of fear. He took another step forward, then stopped. In a calm tone, he spoke his first words. "I don't want your things," he said. "I want to help." The girl froze. The voice was strange, deep, and unlike the voices of her people. It carried a weight she could not understand. "Who are you?" she asked. The man hesitated. Should he tell her the truth? That he was from the stars? That he was not like her people? In the end, he only said, "I am a traveler." "I mean you no harm." The girl tilted her head, listening closely. She had never heard a voice like his. It was not cruel. It was not mocking. It was careful, honest. She lowered her bag slightly but did not let go. "Why are you here?" The man looked at the ruins around them. "Because I have nowhere else to go." The silence between them stretched. The girl's heart beat fast, but slowly her fear began to fade. Something about this stranger felt different. He did not throw stones. He did not laugh at her. He stood still, waiting, as if he respected her. The man reached into his pack and pulled out a small piece of dried food. He placed it on the ground and stepped back. "Take it," he said. The girl smelled the air. Hunger gnawed at her stomach. Slowly, she reached out with trembling fingers until she touched the dry bread. She pulled it close, sniffed it, then ate a small bite. Warmth spread across her face. No one had ever given her food before. "Why?" she whispered. "Why give this to me?" The man looked at her and answered simply, "Because you need it more than I do." For the first time in her life, the girl felt kindness from another being. Her cloudy eyes turned toward the sound of his voice. Something inside her chest stirred, something like trust. But the man had not come only to give food. He carried something else in his pack. Something he had guarded since the crash. He had found it in the wreckage of his ship, still intact. A pair of experimental glasses made with human technology. They were not ordinary. They had lenses that could correct blindness, lenses that could show light even to damaged eyes. He looked at the girl, at her pale face and cloudy eyes. He thought of his crew, of everything he had lost. Maybe this was the reason he had survived, to give this gift. The girl touched her bag again, holding it close. She whispered softly, "I don't understand you. But you are different." The man took a deep breath. Then slowly he knelt down and pulled the glasses from his pack. The lenses shimmered faintly in the moonlight. He held them out in his hands. "Here," he said. "These are for you." The girl frowned, confused. She reached forward, her fingers brushing against the strange object. It was smooth, delicate, and unlike anything she had ever touched. "What is it?" she asked. The man's voice was steady. "A gift. Something that might let you see." Her heart stopped. See, the word was impossible to her. She had never seen anything in her life. She had only known darkness. She shook her head. "No, I cannot. My eyes are broken." But the man did not move his hand. He only said, "Try." The girl held the glasses tightly in her small hands. She could not understand why this stranger had come, or why he had given her food, or why he now offered her such a gift. But deep inside, she felt something new. Hope. And hope was more powerful than fear. The girl sat very still, her cloudy eyes staring into the endless dark she had always known. In her hands she held the strange object the human had given her. It was light, smooth, and shaped in a way she did not understand. 2 round circles connected by a thin bridge with arms that bent outward. She touched the curves with careful fingers, exploring every line. "What is this?" she asked again, her voice soft but full of suspicion. The man crouched near her, his tired face lit by the dim glow of the ruined city. "Glasses," he said simply. "They might help you see." The girl shook her head quickly. "No, that is impossible. I was born blind. My eyes do not work. Nothing can change that." The man's eyes softened. "I know what you believe, but these are not ordinary. They were made with human science. They can give vision to those who have none. At least I hope they can." The girl's lips pressed into a thin line. She wanted to laugh, but laughter felt cruel when directed at hope. She had spent her whole life in darkness, building her world through sound and touch. The thought of seeing was not only strange, it was frightening. She whispered, "Why would you give this to me? Why not keep it for yourself?" The man paused. His gaze dropped to the ground. Memories of his ship, his crew, his fallen comrades pressed heavy in his chest. "Because I already see," he said at last. "But you deserve to see what I see." The girl's hands trembled around the glasses. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever given her anything except cruel words and empty stares. And here was a stranger, not even of her kind, offering her the one thing she had always been denied. Her throat felt tight. She wanted to refuse, to push the glasses away, to tell him he was lying, but something in his voice stopped her. Something steady, something true. "Show me," she whispered, almost afraid of her own words. The man smiled faintly. "Here, let me help." He reached out slowly, careful not to startle her. He placed the glasses in her hands again, guiding them up toward her face. The girl stiffened, her breath sharp. She had never allowed anyone so close. But she did not pull away. The smooth arms slid over her ears. The round frame settled over her nose. For a moment, nothing happened. The darkness was still there, thick and endless. Her heart sank. "I told you, nothing will change." "Wait," the man said softly. "Give it time." The girl frowned. She clenched her fists in her lap. She wanted to tear the glasses off. She wanted to scream. But then, something flickered. A spark. A thin line of light appeared in her vision, sharp and blinding. She gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The darkness cracked like glass breaking. Another spark followed, then another, until her mind filled with shapes she could not name. She covered her mouth with her hands. "What is this?" she whispered. The man's voice was calm. "You are seeing." The light grew stronger, and soon she could make out the rough outline of the broken wall in front of her. Jagged shadows stretched across it. The faint glow of the moon poured through a gap above. She blinked rapidly, her eyes burning, her head spinning. "It hurts," she said, trembling. "Yes, but it will pass. Your eyes are learning." Tears welled up and slid down her cheeks. She had never cried like this before, not from pain, but from something deeper. Joy, fear, wonder, all at once. Slowly, she turned her head toward the man. For the first time, her cloudy eyes caught an image. A tall figure kneeling close, his face strange but kind. His hair was dark, his skin rough, his eyes steady and gentle. Her lips parted. You are real," the man chuckled softly. "Of course I'm real." She stared at him, overwhelmed. For so long she had only known voices and touches. Now she could see the person behind the voice. He was different from her people, but not frightening. His presence was warm. The girl looked down at her own hands. She saw her thin fingers, her silver skin, her dirty nails. She gasped again, covering her face with those same hands. "This is me?" The man nodded. "Yes, that is you." Her heart raced. She had always wondered what she looked like. The children who mocked her never told her. The elders ignored her. And now with one gift, the truth was in front of her eyes. She laughed, a small, shaky laugh. "I am not ugly." "No," the man said firmly. "You are not." The girl pressed her palms to the glasses, afraid they might vanish. Afraid the light might disappear and take her new world with it. But her joy was cut short. A sudden sound echoed through the ruins. The scrape of claws, the hiss of voices. Shadows moved at the edge of her new sight. Dark figures slipping closer, their shapes twisted and hungry. The girl froze. What are those?" The man's face hardened. He reached for the weapon at his side. "Scavengers. They found us." The girl's hands clenched. Just moments ago, her world was nothing but darkness. Now she could see. But the first thing she saw clearly was danger. The man stood tall, placing himself between her and the approaching figures. "Stay close to me," he said, her heart pounded. She had dreamed of sight her entire life. She had finally been given the gift of vision. And now, in the very moment she opened her eyes to the world revealed its teeth. The night was no longer empty. It was alive and deadly, and the blind collector, now no longer blind, had to face it. For the first time in her life, the girl's eyes were open to the world, and the world was terrifying. The scavengers crept from the ruins like shadows given shape. Their bodies were thin but twisted, with long claws that scraped against the ground. Their glowing eyes reflected the faint moonlight, and their hissing voices filled the silence. The girl clutched her bag of trash with both hands. Though she now saw how useless it was against such creatures, fear tightened her chest. Before, in blindness, she had only heard threats. Now she could see them, and the sight was worse than the darkness. The human stood in front of her, his body tense, his weapon raised. His voice was calm but firm. "Stay behind me." She nodded quickly, though she realized he could not see her nod in the dark. Still, she whispered, "I will." Her new vision flickered as her eyes tried to adjust. Everything was sharp and strange. Shapes, colors, light, shadows. It was too much, too fast. Her tears blurred the images, but she wiped them away with her sleeve, refusing to close her eyes. She had waited her whole life to see. Even if death was near, she would not surrender this gift. The scavengers spread out, circling them. They were clever hunters. Their eyes glowed brighter as they hissed and clicked, communicating with each other. The man's voice lowered.
"They want the glasses."
"They'll tear us apart to take them." The girl's hand rose to touch the frames on her face. Already the glasses felt like a part of her, as natural as breath. The thought of losing them crushed her heart. "No," she whispered. "They can't have them." The man glanced back at her. Even in the faint light, he saw something new in her expression. Not only fear, but determination. One scavenger leapt first, claws flashing. The man fired his weapon, and the crack of energy split the night. The creature dropped, screeching, its body smoking. The others shrieked in anger, their voices piercing the air. The girl's ears rang, but she forced herself to keep watching. She saw how the man moved, how he shifted his stance, how he aimed and fired again. Each detail was burned into her fresh sight. Another scavenger rushed from the side. The girl gasped. "They're on your left." The man turned just in time, blasting the attacker back into the rubble. He glanced at her in surprise. She had warned him. For the first time, her vision had saved them both. More shadows darted closer. The girl's heart pounded, but she did not crouch or hide. She scanned the broken street, searching for anything useful. Her eyes caught movement above, a loose stone block hanging on the edge of a shattered wall. "Look up," she cried, pointing.
"The wall, it will fall."
The man followed her direction, then fired at the weak spot. The wall crumbled, crashing down on two scavengers at once. Dust and rock filled the air. The creatures shrieked, trapped under the rubble. The girl coughed, her eyes stinging, but a smile touched her lips. She had seen danger before it struck. She had helped. For the first time, she was not just a helpless blind girl. She was more, but the fight was not over. The remaining scavengers snarled, their glowing eyes fixed on the girl. They had realized the glasses were the key. The man stepped forward, weapon ready. "Stay back," he warned them. His voice was steady, but sweat dripped down his temple. He could not fight forever. His ammo was low. The girl's hands shook, but her new sight showed her something else. A narrow gap between the ruins, a dark path twisting away into the city. Her breath caught. There, a way out. The man turned his head toward where she pointed. He saw the opening almost hidden in shadow. He nodded. Good eyes, he grabbed her hand, pulling her close. Run! They sprinted together, their steps pounding against the cracked stone. The girl stumbled once, her legs unused to running with sight, but the man steadied her. Behind them, the scavengers screamed in fury, chasing through the rubble. The path narrowed, forcing them to squeeze between broken walls. The girl's heart raced as she glanced back, her vision catching flashes of claws and glowing eyes closing in. She had never run with her eyes open. Every step felt strange, every movement overwhelming. Yet she pushed forward. At last, the path opened into a wider street and the man pulled her behind a collapsed tower. They crouched low, breathing hard, their bodies trembling. The scavengers' hisses echoed faintly, but their footsteps faded in another direction. The hunters had lost the trail. The girl pressed her back against the cold stone, her chest heaving. She touched the glasses again, afraid they might slip away. Her eyes still burned, her vision still blurred, but the world was hers now. She could not return to the darkness. The man looked at her, his face tired but proud. You saved us, he said. She blinked at him, surprised. Me, but I only saw... That was enough, he said. You saw what I could not. You warned me. You showed me the path. Without you, we'd be dead. Her heart swelled. She had always been called useless, weak, a burden. But now, in this one night, she had done something no one else could. She looked at her hands again, trembling but strong. I am not just the trash collector anymore. The man gave a small smile. No, you are much more than that. For a long moment, the two sat in silence, listening to the wind move through the broken streets. The danger had passed for now, but the girl knew this was only the beginning. If the scavengers wanted the glasses, others would too. Her new vision was not only a gift, it was a target. She closed her eyes briefly, not from blindness, but from thought. Then she whispered, I will not give them up. Not to anyone, the man nodded. Then we'll protect them, together. The girl opened her eyes again, her sight still strange, still new, but filled with a light that had never been there before. She had seen danger. She had seen herself. And she had seen hope. For the first time, her world was not only sound and touch. It was color, shadow, light, and choice, and she was ready to face it. The ruined street was quiet again. The girl sat with her back against the broken wall, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her new eyes darted around, struggling to drink in everything at once. Shadows, stones, cracks in the walls. The world felt both enormous and small, terrifying and beautiful. The man crouched near her, weapon resting across his knees. His gaze stayed sharp, scanning the streets. He had fought many battles before, but something about this night unsettled him. The scavengers had not attacked by chance. They had known what they wanted. He spoke softly, so his voice would not carry. They will come back. Scavengers never give up. And if they saw you wearing those glasses, word will spread. The girl's hand went to her face, her fingers brushing the frames. Her chest tightened. They want my eyes? The man shook his head. Not your eyes. The gift, the glasses. To them it's power. And power is worth killing for. The girl lowered her head. She had always been ignored, mocked, or pushed aside. Nobody had cared what she carried before. Now, for the first time, something she possessed was valuable. But that value painted a mark on her back. She whispered, I was invisible in darkness. Now I am seen. And it is dangerous, the man nodded grimly. Yes, being seen can be dangerous. But it can also be strength. The choice is how you use it. Her new sight shifted to him. She studied his face closely. His tired eyes, his scarred cheek, the way his jaw tightened when he spoke. She realized he carried more than weapons. He carried loss, weight, and silence. Why did you save me? She asked suddenly. He blinked, caught off guard. Because you needed saving. But you do not even know me. The man's gaze turned distant. He thought of his fallen crew, of faces he would never see again. His voice lowered. Maybe that's why. Because I failed to save others. Because I cannot bear to watch another life be thrown away. The girl's heart softened, but before she could speak, a faint sound stirred the air. A rustle, a scrape. The man's head snapped toward the noise. His hand tightened on the weapon. The girl's new eyes darted into the shadows. At first she saw only broken walls. But then movement. Figures lurking just beyond the edge of the moonlight. Not scavengers this time. Different. Taller. Watching. Waiting. Her breath caught. "There," she whispered, pointing. Behind the wall. The man followed her line of sight, his jaw tightening. "Locals," he muttered. "And not friendly ones." The girl's stomach twisted. She knew of them. Rough bands of survivors who lived by taking from others. They wore masks of bone and cloth, their eyes sharp with greed. They did not care who they hurt as long as they gained something. The man whispered quickly. "They saw the fight. They know we carry something rare. They will follow." The girl's chest pounded. "What do we do?" The man scanned the street, thinking. "We move, now, before they close in." They slipped into the shadows, moving swiftly through the ruins. The girl's new sight made everything strange. Jagged walls, broken windows, collapsed bridges. But she forced herself to focus. Every sound, every flicker of movement made her heart jump. The locals followed, their footsteps quiet but steady. The hunters had turned into prey. As they weaved through narrow alleys, the girl whispered, "They will not stop, will they?" The man shook his head. "No, not until they get what they want." "And what they want is you." Her hands clenched around her bag. She had always been nothing to others. Now she was something, and that something could cost her life. They ducked into a half-broken building, the roof half gone, moonlight spilling across the rubble. The man motioned for her to crouch low. They waited, listening. The girl's ears caught the faint murmur of voices outside. The locals were close, whispering to each other. She could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. Hunger. Greed. Her breath shook. For a moment, the darkness of her old life felt safer. If she had never been given sight, no one would want her. No one would hunt her. But then she remembered the wall that had fallen, the danger she had warned of, the path she had pointed out. Sight had not only brought danger, it had given her a chance to fight. The man's voice was low and steady. "We can't stay here. They'll search every corner. We need to keep moving, and we need to be smarter than them." The girl swallowed her fear and nodded. Her voice trembled, but she said, "I will help." The man gave her a quick look, then a small nod of respect. "Good. Then stay sharp." They slipped out the back of the broken building, moving deeper into the ruins. The locals followed like wolves, their eyes glinting in the dark. The girl's steps were uncertain, her vision still new, but her will grew stronger with each moment. She had always lived in shadows, but now shadows chased her. The hidden danger was no longer just the scavengers. It was the world itself. Those who would do anything to take what she now carried. As they moved through the night, one truth burned clear in her heart. She had gained sight. But sight came with a price, and from this moment forward, nothing in her life would ever be safe again. The night stretched long as the girl and the man moved deeper into the ruins. The city was a maze of broken walls, leaning towers, and empty streets that echoed with danger. Every sound carried weight. Every shadow threatened to move. The girl's legs ached, her breath came heavy, but she forced herself to keep going. Her new eyes burned, still adjusting, yet she refused to close them. For so many years she had lived in darkness. Now, even when fear tightened her chest, she clung to sight like it was life itself. The man walked ahead, his weapon steady, his steps quiet. He glanced back often, making sure she followed. His face was grim, but his movements were careful, as though he carried not only his own survival but hers too. At last they slipped into a hollow under a fallen tower. The space was narrow, hidden by slabs of stone. The man crouched and motioned for her to sit. "We'll rest here," he whispered, "just for a short while. The locals won't stop searching, but they'll pass this area soon." The girl lowered herself onto the cold ground. She hugged her bag of trash close, though for the first time she realized it was not what mattered anymore. Her fingers went to the glasses, pressing them gently, afraid they might fall away. Her voice was quiet. "They will not stop, will they? As long as I wear these?" The man shook his head. "No, word spreads fast. Power like this draws enemies. You'll need to decide how to live with it." The girl lowered her eyes. She thought of her old life, of days spent crawling through rubble for scraps, unseen, unwanted. Back then, no one cared if she lived or died. Now everyone cared too much because of the glasses. She whispered, "Maybe I should take them off." The man's gaze hardened. "No, don't even think that. You have been blind all your life. This gift is yours. Don't let fear steal it away. Her heart stirred at his words. He spoke with such certainty as though he believed in her more than she believed in herself. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind whistle through cracks in the stone. Then the man asked, "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. No one had asked her that in a long time. Most only called her the blind one or trash collector. Finally, she said softly, "Lyra." The man gave a faint smile. "Lyra, a strong name. And you?" she asked. "Call me Kale," he replied. Lyra repeated it under her breath, holding the sound like a secret. Kyle. For the first time since they met, she felt a thread connecting them. Not just survivor and protector, but something closer. Trust. But trust was soon tested. A sudden clatter of stone echoed nearby. Lyra froze, her new eyes wide. She turned her head and spotted movement through a crack in the wall. Silhouettes shifted in the night. "They're here," she whispered. Kale cursed under his breath. He gripped his weapon, but his eyes searched the dark quickly. He knew they couldn't fight so many, not in their condition. "We move, now." They crawled from the hollow, slipping into a narrow alley. The locals' voices grew louder behind them, harsh and eager. Lyra's vision caught a shimmer of light ahead, a broken pipe dripping water into a shallow pool. The ground was slick, glistening. Her mind raced. If they stepped there, their pursuers would see the trail. "Not that way," she whispered quickly, pointing. "The ground will show our steps." Kyle stopped, surprised by her warning. He scanned the ground and nodded. "Good eyes." He led them down another path, deeper into the ruins. Step by step, Lyra began to see more than she ever had. Loose stones ready to fall, shadows that hid movement, cracks wide enough to slip through. Where once she had only stumbled in the dark, now she guided. They slipped into a narrow passage between two leaning towers. The space was so tight they had to turn sideways to pass. Lyra's chest tightened, but she forced herself forward. Behind them, the hunters' voices grew louder, frustrated. At last, they reached a broken courtyard where moonlight spilled freely. Kale crouched low, signaling her to follow. He scanned the edges of the courtyard. "They'll trap us if we stay here. We need higher ground." Lyra's eyes darted upward. She spotted a half-collapsed stairway along the wall, barely holding together. "There," she whispered. Kyle followed her gaze. The stairway was risky, but it was their only chance. He gave a short nod. "Lead the way." Her stomach twisted. She had never led anyone before. But she placed her hand on the railing, steadying herself, and began to climb. Each step creaked, threatening to collapse, but she did not stop. Kale followed close behind, his weight careful. Halfway up, a stone cracked under her foot. She gasped, nearly falling, but Kale's hand caught her arm. "Steady," he whispered. "Trust your steps." Together, they reached the top, stepping onto a wide beam that stretched across the courtyard. From there, they looked down. The locals poured in below, their torches casting wild shadows. They searched the rubble, snarling, but the beam above hid Lyra and Kale from sight. Lyra clutched Kale's sleeve, her heart racing. "We made it," she whispered. Kyle gave her a rare smile. "Because of you." Her chest swelled with warmth. She had guided them, warned them, saved them. For the first time, she was not a burden. She was a partner. But as they watched the hunters prowl below, Kale's voice turned grim again. "They won't stop, Lyra. We can't stay here. This is only the beginning." Lyra nodded slowly. Her fingers touched the glasses, the gift that had changed everything. Fear still lingered in her heart, but something stronger now lived beside it. She whispered, "Then we survive. Together." Kyle looked at her and gave another nod. Trust had been forged not by words, but by danger shared. And in the ruins of a broken city, a blind girl who now could see, and a human far from home, began to walk a path neither could travel alone. The sky above the ruined city was pale with the first light of dawn. Broken towers stretched like jagged teeth against the horizon. The night of fear had passed, but danger still waited in every shadow. Lyra and Kale sat together on a high ledge hidden from the hunters below. They had not slept. Their bodies were tired, but their minds remained sharp. Survival did not allow rest for long. Lyra's new eyes gazed at the sunrise. For the first time, she saw the world bathed in color, shades of orange and gold spilling across the broken stone. Her chest tightened, tears forming again. She had never imagined light could be so beautiful. Kale watched her quietly. He saw the awe on her face, the way she clutched the glasses like a treasure. For him, The sunrise was only another day of struggle. For her, it was a miracle. "Does it always look like this?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. Kale nodded. "Every day." "But most people forget to notice," she smiled faintly, still staring at the horizon. "Then they are blind in their own way." Silence stretched between them, but it was no longer heavy. It was gentle, like a bond forming without words. At last, Kyle spoke again. "Lyra, I cannot stay here. My ship is gone, but I still have a beacon. If I repair it, it will call others from the stars. My people will come for me." Her eyes turned to him wide with uncertainty. "You mean, you will leave?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, this world is not safe for me, and now it is no longer safe for you either. The scavengers, the locals, they will not stop. They saw what you carry. They will hunt you until they have it." Lyra's heart pounded. She had lived her whole life in this broken city. It was cruel, empty, and lonely, yet it was her home. Could she really leave it behind? "You are saying I should come with you?" she asked carefully. Kale met her gaze. His voice was steady but not demanding. "It is your choice. If you stay, you will fight alone. If you come with me, you will see more than you ever dreamed possible. A sky full of stars, worlds without ruins, people who may look strange, but not all will treat you as less." Lyra's fingers trembled on her lap. The thought was overwhelming. She had only just learned to see, and already she was asked to look at an entire universe. Her mind drifted back to the days before, the endless darkness, the cruel laughter, the loneliness of her bag of trash. She remembered how she whispered to broken spoons and stones, because no one else listened. Then she thought of the night she first put on the glasses. The shock of light, the face of Kale, the scavenger's glowing eyes, the ruined stairway she had led them up. She had survived not by hiding, but by seeing. Her world had already changed. Perhaps it was time she changed with it. "I don't want to hide anymore," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I don't want to be the blind trash collector they laughed at. I want to see everything." Kale's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then come." Her heart raced, but her voice grew steadier. "I will." The decision felt heavy, but also freeing. For the first time, she chose her own path. Not forced by blindness, not trapped by others' cruelty, but chosen by her own will. Kyle stood, offering his hand. She hesitated for only a moment before placing her small, trembling hand in his. His grip was firm, steady. Together they climbed down from the ledge and began to move toward the edge of the city. The ruins stretched behind them, fading into the growing light. Hunters still lurked, but Lyra's steps felt stronger now. She was not running from danger. She was walking toward a future. As they passed through the broken streets, Lyra paused once. She turned her head to look back at the place where she had lived her whole life. The alleys where she had stumbled in darkness. The walls where she had hidden from children's laughter. The piles of rubble where she had searched for forgotten scraps. It all looked smaller now. Not less dangerous, but less important. It was no longer her prison. She whispered a farewell to the shadows and turned her eyes forward. Kale glanced at her. "You are ready?" She nodded. "Yes, I can see." They walked on, the rising sun behind them, the open world before them. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with threats and unknown trials. But for Lyra, fear no longer held her in chains. For the first time in her life, she was not blind to her future, and with each step, she carried more than a gift of sight. She carried hope.